returning from Magid, now Magid, not Magid Associates. Magid, sorry, Magid. Last time was here, 2016, I think, a few years ago, did a fantastic job. And they actually did some custom research that's being unveiled today. We're thrilled. There's a larger report, I think, that we're going to make available through the website. We'll blast it out to all of the attendees here as well as the live streamers. So you'll get you're going to get the executive version, the abridged version here today. And I'll let Andrew introduce himself. Thank you, Andrew.
Hey, okay, there we go. It's working. Thanks, Brian, Kurt. Wow, picture of me. And it was in black and white. I have no idea why. All right, so actually, can I switch mics? Can I use this one? All right, perfect. So I had the pleasure of hearing the first few panels today, and I think this data is perfectly teed up now. Partially because we fielded this last week. And as I was going through this, and 50 weeks out of the year, I'm just in the data generally. And I was starting to see some things lately that suggest a couple things are going on. There's the hype in the space, and then there's the reality in the space. And understanding the distinction of what's going on from a consumer's perspective is really, could be the difference between winning and losing in the space. From a strategy perspective. So I think there's going to be some stuff you see here today that might be a little surprising, but I think we have to ground ourselves in what are consumers saying. Because I know we're excited about the space, and I know we're thinking it's a rocket ship and it's taking off to the moon, but not everybody's aboard yet, okay? So we have to look, though, what's going on, and there's some really interesting stuff. So again, this was last week. We talked to 2,000 consumers 18 plus, and we'll get it going. So some big things. One, and we heard it from Christian at Comcast, live linear TV is holding on. As much as we like to believe the hype that everyone cut the cord and we're all in this OTT and everybody has, Zumo, the reality is that live TV is holding on, in particular for the 55 plus audience. Now, we also look at what's working on a genre level lately, and one of the things we're finding is that sports and news, basically, we know they're holding up the bundle, and they're basically fighting against the gravitational pull of the internet and connectivity and streaming for the most part today. I view that as an opportunity. We're going to see sports and news increasingly migrate to this, because I think one of the premise we have and the thesis is that, to steal a line from Matt Strauss at Comcast, that we do think, the internet is the gravitational pull of video, okay? All video eventually will live on the internet likely. Doesn't mean cable television's going away, doesn't mean satellite television's going away. It just means the migration will happen at some point, so keep that in mind. Cord cutting is accelerating in our data. We have the highest number we've ever seen in our studies over the past 20 years for cord cutting. We'll show you that today. Part of the reason, no surprise, we look at relative value of the ecosystem and distribution. Pay television, vMVPD, SVOD. It's really clear when you look at what consumers are saying that the bundle is underperforming on price relative to value. That's driving cord cutting. In other words, people are going, man, this isn't a great deal anymore. Here's the hype and reality again about SVOD though. Today, consumers have about 2.1 SVOD services we know currently. Often in addition, as we heard from the trenders, to pay television. So there's a few. They're open to signing up for 2 more, but that's not a lot. We've looked at this a few times over the past few years, and the answers keep coming back the same, which is the ceiling in the space at one time, or for what people are willing to open their pockets for, is about a handful of services, and that's it. And it's about $40. So we have to consider, that when you're thinking about SVOD strategies, and can you really get into the top handful of services for a company? We're going to show you a little on some of the big guys in the space who are about to enter the space. I'm not going to give it all away, but one of the things we're seeing, at least in the awareness numbers, is that Disney Plus has an early advantage, no surprise. So of the big companies, and you know them, who are about to enter SVOD, by far, in fact, 2x plus, people are aware of Disney Plus versus the other services. However, the majority of consumers don't know about any of the services that are about to launch, okay? So again, we in the industry, New York, LA, we know about this like it's the back of our hand. Consumers still have no idea that a lot of this is happening. I love that the aggregation point came up a bunch in the last panel. We actually looked at this in our study. 70% are interested in a service that aggregates all of their video options onto a single interface. There is a pain point out there in the marketplace where there's a lot of options, there's a lot of great stuff, there's a lot of FOMO. How can we have it all in one place? And finally, we'll show you something that has changed in the trending, which is that AVOD seems to be growing as a business model. In other words, consumers are interested more in AVOD probably than ever before as it relates to streaming. We think that's going to be really the next major growth for streaming, especially given the other data points I'm talking about, right? Cord cutting happening, people being very price sensitive, the ceiling for SVODs being reached really quickly. It's not like they don't want more content. Trust me, they're going to be watching more video tomorrow than they watch today, but that actually is a big opportunity, we think, for AVOD. Okay, now we're going to go through these fairly quickly. This is what I'm talking about when we look at all of the ways people are watching video today. Live as it airs on cable broadcast or satellite television networks is still the dominant form. Streaming has caught up. I mean, if you look at it within the last decade, we're now at a point where 60% of the population on a weekly basis is streaming content. That's pretty amazing. But the reality is that it hasn't still caught up quite with live, and there's a bifurcation going on in the marketplace to some degree. It's not a zero-sum game, as we know. When we look at this by demos, streaming is the favorite platform for the generations under 44 years old, pretty much universally. They say, that's the place I start, that's my favorite, that's where this is all going. But those over 45, and let's be honest, a giant part of the population and a part of the population that has the most capital by far in the country, they're still saying, I still see value in live linear today. It really differs by content type, as I mentioned. So if you look at your favorite platform to watch different types of video, when you talk about TV shows and movies and just use that wide population of 18 plus, one of the interesting things you see is that live gets about 42% as a favorite and streaming's at 38%. They're almost equal. They're almost within the margin of error at this point, where if it's about basically scripted content, I can go either way, and there are people who have different predilections there. But when you talk about sports and movies, there's a significant lead still for the live linear traditional cable product. Back to my point about the gravitational pull, I think what we're going to see eventually is that is the opportunity in the space. We're going to see more sports and news in the next 5 years move to the streaming platforms, especially to super serve the under 44 audience. Cord cutting, I said it was the highest it's ever been. It's at 9%. And let me give you a little background and context on what that means. This represents 18 to 64 pay TV subscribers today who tell us not only are they going to, they're extremely likely to change their service, they're changing their pay TV service and they're going without a vMVPD or an MVPD, okay? They are going to Netflix only, they tell us oftentimes, or they're just going to go without or cobble their own bundle together. 9% of the market. You can see from 2013 we're about 3%. So this is increasing dramatically. I talked about the value of the bundle. You can see it pretty dramatically here too. The excellent and the goods, you know, we're now at 58% of people who have a pay TV bundle saying that it's a good value. As we know, and you go to any classroom, 58% is an F, okay? That's not great. It's underperforming, especially relative to those who have a skinny bundle, much higher, and those who have a subscription video service. No surprise, if you look at the average cost per month of the bundles, you can see a pretty direct correlation there between value and price. Services today, Netflix is still continuing to dominate, as we heard. Hulu is showing growth. Here's the thing, though. Again, the hype versus the reality. The average person only has 2 services. 70% of the market has a service. There's a third of consumers 18 plus who don't have any of these today. Got to keep that in mind. How do you super serve them? And then the other thing we're seeing, we heard it from one of the trenders loud and clear, 45% say they're going to churn within a year after signing up for an SVOD. When we dig deeper, why are you churning? It's the exact answer we heard earlier. I really was there for a few shows, and I got out of the ecosystem. And it's often because oh, by the way, Game of Thrones went back, so now I'm on to the HBO service, and then I dropped that, and I jumped over to Hulu to watch Handmaidens, and then I jumped over here and there. So there's a lot of jumping. You know, being able to cancel and churn has never been easier from a consumer perspective, and it's something, again, as you think of S5 business models, it has to really be front and center. Talked about 4 services is the average number of paid SVODs that a consumer says they'll subscribe to. $42 is what that equates to when we ask them, okay? Which is kind of amazing because they sort of did the mental math. They essentially said, yeah, they're about 10 bucks each, and I'll have maybe 4 of them. They know we're going to cut down on the bundle or shave the bundle a little bit. But they're not telling us that tomorrow they're going to be spending $80 in this space. It's very, very important to keep that in mind. I saw a stat this week that somebody was citing that said there'll be 10 services, 10 paid different SVOD services. We're far off from that reality, okay? That's a lot of hype still. Not to say it's not going to go there, but if you just look at where we are in 2019. Awareness of streaming services. Disney Plus out front, 35% of consumers 18 plus have heard of Disney Plus. Now, that name, you know, there's a cohort that just, everything Disney, they just press yes. Okay, we get that. But the fact is that when you ask, and we hid the other results from you, but if you ask, have you heard of none of these, almost 60% haven't heard of any of these services yet. And if you think about it, there really hasn't been consumer-facing marketing here yet. So with these services coming out Q3, Q4, there is a lot of work to be done to get the consumers up to speed. They're not going to turn around and you know, have 20 million subs a week later. You know, a lot of these consumers still need education in this space. 33% of consumers 18 plus say managing a video subscription is a problem. All of the video subscriptions today, just managing them. And again, they have what, 2 or 3? And we know how much the space is exploding. It's already reaching a problem point. It's not good. When we ask about the interest, though, in aggregating all paid subscriptions into a single interface, 70% are somewhat interested in that at least. That's a big, big number. Everybody likes that idea generally. Interest in AVOD is growing. We have asked people for a number of years what their preferred viewing method for streaming television shows and movies is, okay? So we give them options that are essentially, would you like subscription with no ads? Would you like to purchase it EST style, you buy a download? Would you like to have free content, but there's gonna be advertising supporting that free content? Now we're at a point where 55% prefer advertising. This has jumped pretty dramatically even in 1 year. What that suggests to me is that consumers are making a bit of a correction in the marketplace. Again, they're going, whoa, I'm reaching my ceiling on a lot of this content. It's great, but I'm looking for new content that might be ad-free, or sorry, ad-supported going forward, and I'm not gonna just be opening up the wallet all the time. So, and again, we heard that from a trender as well who said a very similar thing this morning. So I think the idea and where this all goes, maybe more sports content, maybe more news content, more AVOD content, that seems to be a direction. But a lot of this, I think, is, again, the distinction between the hype and the reality of what's going on in the space. We just need to temper that and understand really what consumers are telling us first and foremost. And, okay, under 30 seconds left. Any questions? We have like 100 plus slides of this stuff in much greater detail. A lot of stuff on binging, content forms, you know, brands, all of that stuff. So happy to share it with you.
Can you talk about pricing for the niche SVOD channels? I've noticed they've been increasing $1, $2 from like $3 to $4.99, $5, $6, $7. Any research on that?
Yep. So I've spent the good part of the last 5 years doing a lot of that type of research. You know, I think what you're seeing is these companies going, we have to make money some way. So, you know, in terms of incrementally raising it, to your point. But the idea that, oh, you can just come out, you know, with a $5 product, and it's a niche service, and the market ceiling is 5 million people. That's a really hard business model. I don't care if you're charging $50 a month or $5. So I think the pricing component's really, really difficult. You know, one major media company not too far from here is trying to bundle a lot of different brands together, and pricing is the first problem because some of the brands are already in the market with an OTT product that's competitively priced. I will tell you one thing, I don't think we've seen any evidence you can go over 15, and I don't care who you are. Netflix knows this really well because if they could do it and they haven't. Now they've incrementally pushed up over the years, but they're adding $1 or $2 a time. So what's the answer? It's basically if you're going to go mass, you're going to go scale, you have to have something over $10. But getting people to pay for that, you saw the ceiling. It's really, really tough.
Okay, one more question. Well, we'll do two. Please say your name, company, and then ask your question.
Yeah, hi, it's Chris Osika from Telestream. Quick question on the live content streaming. What's been the major impediment there? Has it just been availability? Has it been quality? What do you see as a barrier?
Yeah, so early on, I think it was anticipation, as we say. There was a lot of anticipation for it among a cohort, and then they started to use the products, and there would be streaming issues. The products were not up to snuff. I think one of these guys during the Raptors game last week, coming down to the final minute, and they had a blackout nationwide because of too many people on the stream. So I think that's part of the problem. One of the things we also see is that if you look at skinny bundles, vMVPD, much higher churn rates than traditional cable operators. Part of it is a little sampling. And can I check this out, and can it be a replacement? And I think for some people it's worked, but at this point, I'm not sure the services are quite at the level they need to be if they're going to take over that ecosystem. But I do think as more and more people become comfortable with streaming, it's here to stay. That's what I say again about the gravitational pull. It's here to stay. They're going to have to figure it out. Technology will get a lot better, 5G, et cetera. But early days, I think that's hurt the growth.
Okay, quick question.
Scott Salter from Equifax. Hey, my question's real quick in regards to the 55% of advertising. Do you have any more details or data in regards to that as targeting, kind of granulate that down a little bit more of what they're actually accepting and more interested in?
Yeah, we do a ton of custom work on that very issue. And I think we may have some stuff if you come to us that we can share with you on a one-on-one basis on that. Yep.
Last question right here.
Hey, Scott Metter with T-Mobile. So about 1.4 million subs left the pay TV environment last quarter, and only about what, 500,000, 600,000 went to vMVPDs.
Right.
So is everybody headed to Hulu and Netflix? Is that where everybody's going? There's been some murmurings about, over-the-air antenna usage increasing. Where's the rest going?
Yeah. So I would say the largest cohort that we see in terms of where they're migrating to is SVOD only. In particular, Netflix, Hulu, like you said, that's the largest cohort. Now, that's not a majority of them, though. So it is fragmented in what's happening. There is a number of consumers who are considering vMVPDs. We are seeing some antenna usage more and more often, and in fact, surprising demos who now have figured out their digital antenna. The under 40s can actually get a lot of channels, bundle that with their cable. Suddenly, that's a pretty good value prop. So, but by and large, the biggest single place they're going is SVOD only. Again, and those people tend to under-index, as we know, and what we saw on news and sports. So it's important to keep in mind, those are not consumers who are valuing those maybe as much. That's why they're moving over for scripted content. All right, thanks for the time, everybody.